The United States has a grand plan to remove the vote from women. They don't. There are many conservatives that are probably clapping and cheering at the prospect, but this is fear-mongering intended to incite feminism, and largely in the UK. So they can look to the United States and say, look at this boogeyman. They want to stop women from voting. Well, there are many conservatives that think we should repeal the 19th Amendment. That's never going to happen unless, like, society crumbles, a revolution happens, and then, the authoritarian right takes over and says, no more lady voting. But there are legitimate arguments about female voting patterns and what motivates a female voter versus a male voter. The argument is that over a long enough period of time, female voting patterns will result in, what's the right word, what right way to describe this? A degradation of the system will occur, and then everybody will end up worse off. That being said, certainly men are responsible for some horrifying governmental systems all the same. I mean, you've got you got Soviet Union, you got dictators, you got Chinese Communist Party. A lot of dude communists, and they ran their countries very, very, very poorly. So the question is, what makes female voting patterns result in some of these processes or systems, and do they eventually break down? What makes the same system led by men do similarly, and what ultimately is the answer? Well, here's a story from the iPaper. The U.S. has a grand plan to remove the vote from women. It could happen here, too. If you believe democracy means that each of us has a voice, the right to vote, choose, speak, dissent, now is the time to guard it. Is that a picture of herself? Who wrote this? It is Deborah Francis White. You're not going to escape the tropes about women with you wrote an article about voting and used a picture of yourself. The trope is that when men take pictures of things, they take a picture of the thing, and women take a picture of themselves with the thing, because men and women are different. And then women get offended when you point that out. Here we go. When I first saw online rumblings that women's right to vote was being called into question in the U.S., I assumed the manosphere was having a slow day and that it was an outrageous fringe idea to be laughed off. After all, the 19th Amendment assuring women's suffrage was ratified in 1920. It certainly wasn't straightforward for all American women. Native American women weren't even classified as citizens until 1924, and the Jim Crow laws blocked black women from voting until the 1960s. I love this because black men couldn't vote either, but exclude them. However, even the most fiercely anti-feminist forces haven't openly questioned women having the vote in my lifetime because no one can remember a time when it wasn't normal. That particular Overton window has closed and bolted, but recently someone has been picking the lock. Who is that someone? Let's be real. There are tons of prominent, high-profile dudes and women calling for the repealing of the 19th Amendment. It's not one person. I host the Guilty Feminist podcast and a live show in London a few years ago. Oh, and at a live show a few years ago, an admittedly uncharacteristic audience member collared me in the theater lobby and told me very earnestly that she thought women shouldn't have the vote because we were too emotional. But I'm going to pause real quick to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Backyard Butchers. Check out backyardbutchers.com/Tim, and you can get up to 30% off and, yes, a free turkey or ham. Now, what is Backyard Butchers? It's real rancher-raised beef. No feedlot mystery meat garbage, no chemicals or hormones. Real beef, the way Grandma wanted it to be when she was feeding you as a baby. Kick Big Ag out of your kitchen. Go to backyardbutchers.com. Use promo code Tim. Check this out. The steakhouse box, a 14-ounce T-bone, 13-ounce bone-in ribeyes. Oh, man, that sounds so good. You want to be healthy? You want to eat right? You get real food from real people, real ranchers. This is American tradition, American meat, Backyard Butchers. No chemicals, no garbage. So once again, shout out to backyardbutchers.com/Tim. I recommend it. I'm a big fan of a ribeye myself, but it's a toss-up. A nice filet, you can't go wrong. You're going to get that free Thanksgiving turkey or ham. Even though we're past Thanksgiving, they're still offering it up. Check it out now. And you know what? Maybe you can get it just in time for Christmas and have something delicious. But now, let's get back to the news. That was my first alarm bell. But wait a minute. That's a lady, not a man. Since then, the manosphere, the online anti-women lobby, has become inflamed, in ways I could not have imagined, and Roe v. Wade, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling ensuring the right to an abortion at a federal level, has been overturned. The times, they are a-changin'. In response, I am producing a series of episodes entitled The Road to Gilead, referencing Margaret Atwood's dystopian novel, The Handmaid's Tale. Gilead is a fictitious version of the United States where men are in charge and women are subjugated as obedient wives, enslaved baby factories, sex workers, and indentured servants. It sounds horrifying, but it seems more plausible this year than last, and far more plausible than it did 10 years ago. Okay, we're going to do it. Handmaid's Tale. We're going to pull it up and pull up the synopsis. The Handmaid's Tale. I don't care for the TV show. We'll pull up the old wiki here. And plot summary. After staging an attack, killing the President of the United States and most of the United States Congress, a radical political group called the Sons of Jacob uses a theonomic ideology to launch a revolution. The Constitution of the United States is suspended, newspapers are censored, and the U.S. is reformed into a military dictatorship known as the Republic of Gilead. The new regime quickly consolidates its power, overtaking all other religious groups, including Christian denominations. The story is told in the first person by a woman named Offred, considered a criminal for trying to escape to Canada with a forged passport with her husband and 5-year-old daughter. She's also considered an adulterer for being married to a divorced man. Her marriage was forcibly dissolved and her daughter was taken from her. Instead of being sentenced under the Republic of Gilead's draconian criminal justice system, Offred accepted training to become a handmaid at the Rachel and Lee Center, an alternative only available to fertile women. Environmental pollution and radiation have drastically affected fertility, and she is one of the few remaining women who can conceive. Oh, she has been assigned to produce children for the commanders, the ruling class of men, and has made a handmaid a role based on the biblical story of Rachel and her handmaid Bilhah. Is that how you say that? Women are classed socially and wear uniforms ranked highest to lowest. The commanders' wives in sky blue. No, hold on there, gosh darn dang minute. So this isn't just a story about evil right-wing dictators who force women to have babies. It's a story of the collapse of civilization itself. And I always thought this was funny that while I'm certainly not familiar with the entirety of the plot, so let's separate this. The reaction always to Handmaid's Tale from feminists omits the society and civilization is collapsing and there's no more babies. So women are forced to have babies. Now, by all means, I'm not a fan of forcing women, through law and gunpoint to make them into handmaids. But I'm just going to point out when civilization is on the verge of collapse because humans can't have kids anymore, this is an inevitability. It'll happen no matter what. That's it. Because there's two scenarios. Women, let's just say fertility collapsed entirely on the planet. It is, but I mean like women couldn't conceive anymore and it was a panic. Right now, actually, to be fair, they've got these bags they can grow babies in, so they'd probably do that. But based on the time frame of what the story is supposed to be, not that I'm going to excuse a totalitarian right-wing government, but I'm also going to point out that she omits humanity was dying, right? So you're going to get an authoritarian takeover. That's the reality. If the government would ever collapse, it's going to be the most brutal guy who wins because people will fight to survive. Anyway, I love how they omit that. She doesn't mention why they're enslaved baby factories. Again, not that it's a good thing, but she could mention that people can't have kids anymore and very few can, and those that can are made to have kids. Project 2025, published in 23 by the right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation, is an initiative setting up plans for the right to consolidate executive power. Its policy document mandate for leadership calls to replace federal workers with those loyal to the next conservative president, blah, blah, blah. Set out to dismantle the Department of Education. Oh, yeah, Part of the new political climate includes the visibility of the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, which counts more than 160 congregations across North America. A few years ago, the whole discussion would have been seen as ludicrous, indeed. Now CNN is reporting on Christian nationalist pastors and their wives. Why? Because it's being taken seriously by very powerful people in the United States. Get to the point. Pete Hegseth, Trump Secretary of War, formerly Defense, thank you for getting that getting it correctly, shared a CNN report on X in which CREC members declared the 19th Amendment should be overturned for household suffrage. Hegseth went further and endorsed the video with the motto, "All of Christ for all of life." CNN confirmed that Hegseth and his family attended the inaugural service at Wilson's new D.C. church, 19thnews.org, a nonprofit website covering gender and politics. Reported the chief Pentagon spokesperson, Sean Parnell, gave a statement saying, "The secretary is a proud member of the church affiliated with the congregation. of Reformed evangelical churches, which was founded by Wilson. The secretary very much appreciates many of Mr. Wilson's writings and teachings. No one is suggesting that women will lose the vote this year or next, but that's not how this kind of campaign works. They will not stridently demand action, but rather slowly shift the cultural Overton window until ideas which once seemed foreign and bizarre seem familiar and reasonable. The first step is cultural normalization, putting the idea in circulation in living rooms, social media threads, and church pews so that it becomes unthinkable. Arwa Madawi has pointed out in The Guardian that tech billionaire and major Republican donor Peter Thiel and tech almost trillionaire Elon Musk both obliquely flirted with the idea of women's suffrage being a mistake. She adds Musk, Thiel, and Hegseth are some of the most powerful people in the world. When they hint that they are interested in getting rid of women's suffrage, we should take them very seriously indeed. So what does this mean? Well, a household vote is basically this. A married couple communicates as to what they want, and the man as a representative will go and then vote accordingly. The man will then go and vote saying, here's what my household desires. Instead of having it be just kind of like anybody, anywhere. I don't know if I'm completely a fan of the idea or whatever. I think it's worth debating. But I will say this. The shift in political patterns based on female desires versus male desires does result, in my opinion, in social degradation. Let me explain. And I'm not saying women shouldn't be allowed to vote. There certainly are many women who make good choices and vote properly. And then there are ones that make bad choices. It's pretty alarming when you see that women love murderers. Women love 50 Shades of Grey. Women buy books where they are subjugated. You will likely, and that's not a joke. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey had a sequel, it was a movie, and it was considered to be like one of the best-selling eroticas for women ever, I guess. Actually, is that true? Let me fact check that one. Let's see for sure. Is 50 Shades of Grey the best-selling women's erotica ever? Because if it's not, I'm wondering what is. Let's see what we say. Shortly, it is not definitively proven to be, but it is considered to be one of the most successful and best-selling erotic romance novels of all time. It has set major sales records with over 150 million copies worldwide. Wow! One of the fastest-selling paperbacks in UK history. Ladies like they porn. Here's how it works. In the book, a young college grad who can't afford to pay her bills becomes a slave for a strong man. These ladies complain about Handmaid's Tales or whatever, and it's like, you've got two books. One where you're like, oh no, we don't want to be enslaved by these powerful men. And then the other where they're like, we love the book where the woman is enslaved by the powerful man. And that's incongruous, as it were. But I'll put it like this. We know that women love true crime. We know that they love mystery. We know that they love social order because they are subject-oriented where males are object-oriented. What ends up happening is you'll see voting patterns that result in things like Justin Trudeau, a pretty poor leader, but he was a hunk. Not all women vote that way, and not all men vote based on real merit. There's a lot of really dumb guys out there. In fact, there are more dumb men than dumb women. That's called the greater male variability hypothesis. This is why I'm not saying we should repeal the 19th, although many are. My point is, you got a wide spread of really stupid guys, and you got a lot of really smart guys. Okay. And then women are closer to the average. So if it's just men voting, a lot of retards are going to vote too. You know what I mean? Now, the question is, with female voting patterns, does it ultimately result in, say, a communist revolution or social breakdown? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe it is. And I'm still not advocating that we take away women's right to vote. I think there should just simply be requirements for voting. I believe that the simplest answer right now is when you sign up for the selective service, the draft, men and women must do it. You get a voter card. That's it. Not saying you will be drafted, not saying we should draft anybody, but you're saying I am willing to stand up when my country needs me, and for that reason, you get a say in how we operate. Also, you got to be a citizen. This means there are going to be a lot of men and women who say, I ain't signing up for that. Well, okay, that's fine, but you don't vote. You have full rights as citizens, but you're not voting unless you're willing to sign that you will stand for this country in its time of need. And again, we haven't had the draft in 60? It's almost 60 years now? Wild. What we end up seeing with female voting patterns is that they vote based on the smile, the social order, and not the merits. And don't get me wrong, a lot of dumb guys vote for dumb things too. We get it. But you'll end up seeing Zoran Mamdani's, you get Brandon Johnson's. Look at these Democrat cities, hyper-polarizing and breaking apart, and women keep doubling down because women have different views than men. Now, if you allow only men to vote, the male interest is going to be the function of economics and government. And there's pros and there's cons. I think the issue is you go back in time, and it wasn't just that men could vote, but male landowners could vote. This meant the poorer and less equipped and less capable men were not voting. It was very much you had to be a guy with a degree of success to vote. I don't know how we implement that system these days. So the real issue, in my opinion, is not women as voters. It's when you have macro level voting patterns because you're saying anyone can vote however they want. You get different voting patterns based on race, based on gender, based on age. The real question should be, why do you have a say in how we operate this country? What are you doing for us? Some have argued you got to be a net taxpayer. That's one of the ideas. That would mean only like the top 10% of wealth of income earners would actually vote. I see a lot of people saying, yeah, I pay taxes, and if you don't, you can't. If you make like $70K a year, you are not a net taxpayer. You are receiving more in tax benefits than you are paying. Net taxpayers start around several $100,000 per year. I don't know about all that. I don't think that your say in how this country operates is just tied to whether or not you're generating enough money, because then stupid people who inherit money and are wealthy get to vote. That doesn't make sense. So how about this? You have to say, I am willing to stand for my nation, men and women alike. I think that'll solve a lot of the problems. But lady, have fun fear-mongering. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned, my friends. We got more coming up for you, and we'll see you all in the next segment.